Today we're going to be creating graphics in Adobe Photoshop. This is an alternative to Adobe Illustrator if you don't have the program or if you want to use a free version like Photopea. But the design today is going to be done in Photoshop, where we'll be working with typography, warping text, and adding in graphics to give it a full composition overall. We're going to begin by creating a new document. I can go up to File, New in Photoshop. And for our document size, we're going to set the width to 10, height to 6, and at 300 dpi. Right now, the color mode is set to RGB. Normally, if you're doing any type of print document, you want to switch it over to CMYK. But just for creating the graphic itself and understanding the process, we can leave it as is. I'm going to click Create. Over to the right side navigation, you will see the character panel. If you do not see the character panel, it's going to be located with the capital A with a vertical line next to it, or you can go up to Window at the top navigation and click on Character. But you will notice that my first font that I have installed is known as Carolyn. I've downloaded that off of defont.com. But you can use any fonts that work for you. For installing Carolyn, I went over to defont.com and I can download the file over to the right side navigation, and I can double click on the file and click Install. So it's installed onto my computer and installed into Photoshop. I'm going to first look to build out the type for my graphic. I'm going to click over on the Type tool over on the left side navigation and click and drag to type in Welcome To. And if the type is not appearing when you first do it, might be because the type is too large. You may want to reduce it down just to make sure it fits inside the type box. As we see Carolyn font with the Greek type inside. I'm going to change it to Welcome To. And rather than having to create a second text box, I'm going to hold down Alt or Option, depending on if you're on a Mac or PC. I'm going to click and drag to create a duplicate. Then I can select the information and type in Established. And if we're referring to New Jersey, which we will for this graphic, I'm going to type 1787. As it was founded December 18th, 1787. But we're going to create a little bit more variation on the Established, just so 1787 stands out a little bit more. I'm going to reduce the font size down to 35, just to make it a little bit smaller, and bump up the Established on the baseline shift so that it lines up in the middle of where 1787 is. So over on the right side navigation in the character panel, we can see the capital A with the lowercase a baseline being pushed up. I can either type in 10 point, or I could adjust on the letter to move it up or down to have the placement in which I want. But 10 point is safe for this size. And now I'm going to look to create a graphic, or the type for New Jersey. And click and drag to make a larger type box. And I'm going to do uppercase for the N, uppercase for the J, while the rest of the letters are going to be referred to as small caps. And I'm going to adjust the size of this to 150 points. I can scale down the type box just so it fits. I'm not working too large of an area. But we have our first information that we're going to work with. Now we're going to look to how we can warp our text. To warp our text, we're going to start out with New Jersey. To modify New Jersey, I'm going to make sure that I have the Type tool selected. With the Type tool selected, I can take a look at the top navigation where I have the capital T with a curved line underneath. This is the Create Warp Text. I can click on that and click on the drop down for the pop-up. And I'm going to choose Rise for this design. And I'm going to reduce this down to about 50 plus for the percentage. If yours is adjusting further, you can always drop it down to plus 30%. or you could change the design going the opposite way, just a matter of modifying your bend. But for my design, I'm going to push it up to plus 50 and click OK. Next, I'm going to look to modify my welcome and welcome to and my established. For my welcome to, we're going to be doing different text, different warp. With this, we're going to go to the type tool at the top navigation, click on the drop down, and go over to flag. With flag, it's going to wave up to down, and we can always change the bend so it faces the opposite direction. I'm going to reduce this down to negative 30% and do the opposite for established. I'm going to highlight that text. And with the type tool selected, I'm going to click on flag as well for this. This time I'm going to switch it to negative 30. Or I will switch it over to positive 30. Just create the opposite effect, tied in, but give something different over on this side. And you can always just type it in as well. But once I have these graphics created, I can look to modify, add in strokes, and add in layer styles. I'm going to start out with New Jersey itself. With New Jersey, I'm going to click on the FX down at the bottom right corner. This is the add layer style. And in my options, I'm going to first look to add in strokes. If I wanted to maintain colors similar to New Jersey, the New Jersey colors are buff and blue, but I'm going to do a gold and navy. And we're going to add in a stroke to begin with. For the stroke, again, I'm going to go over more of a gold color. And you can eye to what you're liking, or you can go through a little bit more precise and find the hex number for gold or colors that work for you. Once I have the color I like, or if I want to modify it in any way, I can click OK, and I'm going to look to adjust the pixel size. I have the position of the stroke on the outside of the letters. I'm going to push this up to 80%. The reason why I'm pushing it to 80% is to make sure that I'm covering in any of the gaps or open areas between the letters. And that's a little bit strong, so I'm going to reduce this down to 60 pixels. So if we see that I have this little gap of white inside the R and S, again, I can just slightly adjust it, move it. Just so I'm not seeing that little piece of white, I'm going to adjust it up a little bit more, and we'll do 65. Once I'm satisfied with that, I'm actually going to add in another stroke. To add in another stroke, right next to the stroke icon, there's a plus sign. If I click on that plus sign, it adds in a second stroke. With the second stroke, we want to make sure that we're modifying the top stroke. The one appearing on the bottom is the one that is going to appear bottom on the graphic itself. So if I change the color of this stroke over to a navy blue, see that it affects the overall main color. And we'll make a slight adjustments very soon. But I'm going to reduce the size of the stroke down just so we're getting a little bit of highlight of that gold color still around the outside. And we'll bring this to 45 pixels. And as we've added in this gold and navy, you'll see that the edges around the letters are a little bit sketchy. They come off a little bit too blockish. And unfortunately, that's the difference between Photoshop and Illustrator, where Illustrator is using a lot smoother graphics overall. You're not going to get those sharp edges and those points around curved lines. But to make our type and stroke stand out, we're going to actually add in a color overlay, or you can simply change the color of the font to white. But just adding in a color overlay is very simple. It's still in the layer style. I click on color overlay, and I'm going to switch this over to white and click OK. We're going to be using the same color palette over on Established in 1786 or 1787 and Welcome To. So if I would like to maintain the same effects, I can right-click over on the layer style, right-click on New Jersey, and I can hit Copy Layer Style, and I can then right-click on Welcome To and paste layer style. When I paste layer style, you see it applies right onto the text, but we get some variations a little bit too strong overall. So I'm going to reduce down the size by double-clicking into the stroke on Welcome To. I can reduce this down for my gold color first. I'm going to put this down to 45 like we had for the inside stroke. And then for the top stroke, I'm going to change from 45 to 30. Keeping it at 30 pixels just allows me to still maintain something very similar to what we're seeing with New Jersey, but works better for the size of the font that we have. And again, it still has that white color overlay, making the type pop out. We're going to look to apply these same effects. So I can then again copy layer style onto Established 1787. So copy layer style and paste layer style. And we see that those same effects are applied onto Established 1787. If you wanted to create differences in the strokes on Established in 1787, you would have to separate them into two different type boxes. But if I want to nudge this down or bring this down slightly, just so it separates, I can. But now we're going to look to apply in a graphic behind our design. With our design, we want to think something simple that's going to keep it elegant overall. If I would like to hide my graphics, I can hide the layers over on the right side navigation. And I'm going to build out more of a column design based on ancient Greek architecture. I can start out with the rectangle tool over on the left side navigation. And if I want to match a certain color from our fonts, I can begin by building out a long rectangle over on the left side of our image. And I want to fill this in, but I'm going to create its own separate layer just so we're not drawing on the type. I'm going to first eyedrop the gold that I have in the background and use the paint bucket, or I can use Edit Fill to fill in the area. So Edit Fill, I would choose out the foreground color because that's where I sampled the color of the gold, and click OK, and you see it fills into that area. Or again, you can click on the paint bucket and simply click inside the area. I'm going to deselect. Now I'm going to look to duplicate the same shape multiple times, and I wanted to go across as if we were creating a very thin column going across the overall design. So now I can hide New Jersey. So for this design, I want to first look to hold down Alt, and as I hold down Alt or Option, you get the duplicate arrows. That indicates that I can create a duplicate from the shape if I'm selected over top of it. I'm going to click and drag to the right, and I'm just going to drag it over 12 pixels. And the good thing is that Photoshop will have the smart guides on. You can always turn them off up in the top section view, but I like working with getting things aligned, make sure it stays precise. Once I have both these two lines created, I can create them individually if I wanted to. Again, holding down Alt and dragging over. And I can do this all the way across, but it might take some time. Or if I go over to my layers panel, I can hold down Shift, selecting from the top layer down to the bottom of the vertical lines that I've created, selecting all four. And then I could do the same process holding down Option or Alt, clicking, dragging over to the side. It's just a matter of making sure that you maintain the same distance for each one. Then again, over in the layers panel, I can select on my bottom layer, hold down shift, select on the top layer, then again, click and drag, holding down Alt. Make sure you're holding down Alt or Option. And then you'll repeat this process until you have the desired graphic that you're looking for. So even though this is several layers, it will give us a nice overall design which we can then group and always put them in a single folder. Once I have this many, it should be able to go across the page where I want. Just a matter of making sure that you hold down Shift, selecting all of them over on the layers panel, or you can individually select them holding down Control, but that is more of a nuisance. But with them all selected, again, holding down Alt or Option, click and drag over to the side. I can also hold down Shift to make sure that they stay aligned on top and bottom. And overall, that looks good for the amount. If I want to center them, I can look to click and drag from over top of the image, click and drag slightly till I get that pink line appearing in the middle. Now we're going to look to create horizontal bars like the top of the Parthenon or Parliament, but again, going over to the rectangle select or rectangle marquee tool. I'm going to click and drag first to create a rectangle, and then fill this in. Again, you want to make sure that you create a separate layer, and then I can paint that in, or again, you can always go edit fill. I'm going to create one more on top. This time I'm going to align it better. And again, filling it in with the paint bucket. These two have been placed on the same layer, but I'm going to look to duplicate this layer, so I can hold down Alt or Option, click and drag this downward. Zoom out. Again, holding down Shift will maintain the alignment to make sure it stays even. I can always use the arrow keys to nudge the location of these lines. If I would like to flip this so it's more of a mirror effect, I can go up to Edit, Transform, and flip horizontal, or flip vertical, excuse me. So that is more of a mirror on the bottom and top. If I were to show the graphic, I have New Jersey and the Welcome to and Established all appearing below the type. But remember I said that we would like to group our type over, or the graphics overall. So I'm going to select on layer 1 over in layers panel, hold down Shift. If your computer is lagging or coming up slow because all the layers that you've created, you could always merge them into one. But just for organizational methods, I can just simply click on the folder icon down in the bottom right hand corner, create a new group. Now it's all within one folder. I can move group 1 underneath of my type. And then look to modify the placement, whether it's the graphics or working with the text, that is up to you. With group 1 selected, I can simply use the arrow keys to nudge the location how I want. If you feel like the type is too small, you can look to enlarge the type. I decide that I wanted to move this slightly up. Moving New Jersey and the Welcome to and Established. I'm going to select all 3 layers. Then I can go up to Edit, Transform, and Scale, scaling them all up simultaneously, maintaining consistency. With Photoshop, in this newest version, you don't have to hold down Shift. It maintains proportions unless you hold down Shift, and then it will distort the shapes. But this overall fits better to the design I'm looking for. I can hit Enter when replaced. Other elements you can consider adding is ornament designs. Ornaments just to help make it stand out. Maybe you want to put the shape of New Jersey or shape of the location that you're going to, or maybe a landmark that stands out representative of the location that you're trying to create. But if I wanted to create different variations, I could look at using the pen tool, creating ornaments. I decided that I wanted to do a design, or I can grab a graphic off of the internet and create my own ornament. So I already have preset graphics that I have already grabbed before. So if you have preset graphics, an easy way to duplicate these and create copies from these I'm going to add a graphic with a number of different ornaments, designs that I grabbed off the internet. And to be able to modify or create some variation, if I want to take a sample, say this ornament design produced in black and white, I'm going to draw a trapezoidal shape to select this area alone without selecting out any of the others. I can make a copy, Command C or Control C. I'm going to paste it into my design. We can see that it is a little bit smaller, so I can scale it up. I can hit Command or Control T, grab the corner, make it larger. Then I want to select just the black area. So I want to get rid of the white, or I can look to simply select the black and then create a new layer where I can fill in the color. But for this, I'm going to take out the white and then fill in a new color on top of our ornament shape. So I'm going to select over on our magic wand, click on the white area, and hit backspace to cut that area out. Then I can deselect, Control or Command D. Then I can look to go over to my layer style, click on color overlay. And with color overlay, I can sample color from one of the colors I have in my graphic. So if I click on this white box, I can then sample the navy blue that I have here. And I'll show you with gold as well. I can hit Control T to modify the shape or placement of my graphic. If I just wanted it above part of my design, just give it a nice little flourish. Create a duplicate. If I want to mirror it, have it on the opposite side. And go Edit, Transform, Flip Vertical, change the location. You can play with the size or proportion. So you can maintain colors, or you can play with different variations. Maybe I wanted to have this still as another gold element, but maybe sitting behind the New Jersey. I can go back into my effects, color overlay, sample the gold color so it matches that gold color. And again, I can look to move this layer underneath of my type just so it appears as another part of the graphic overall. Move around the location. Depends on what you're trying to create. If I was more satisfied with that navy color, I can go back into the design, sample that navy. Now I have that navy back in, and can move that graphic around until I am overall satisfied. If I wanted to grab any other elements, maybe New Jersey outline, I can take an image from the internet. Just be careful of any watermarks or any difficulties that you're going to have with an image. You'll see watermarks on this type of image. But if I go back into this design right now, this design is a simplified variation of the New Jersey outline, where I can look at this design overall. And what I can do is right click on the image, save image as. I'll save it to my downloads, New Jersey outline. And go back into my design, go up to File, Open, or you can always go File, Open in place, but you would have to rasterize that layer. But I can go to my downloads, choose a New Jersey outline, click Open. With the New Jersey outline, if I zoom in a little bit, what I'm looking to do ultimately is just select the outside area, and then I'm going to invert my selection, select Inverse. And I can hit Control-C, copying the area, and then go back over to my design, Control-V. And it did paste in New Jersey, it's just a matter of making sure you check your layers. Right now I had it on a low layer, so it was appearing behind my graphic. But if I move this around, I could again look to do a color overlay over top of the image. So if I wanted to do, say, the gold, or that navy, just to add in an element, and click OK. Control-T to scale it up. Maybe rotate it around. Just make sure the placement of it, you're not losing the sense of what the shape of it should look like, and that people would be able to still recognize it. So if I played this behind my established, go back over to my layers, you can see this is under now my established. Maybe I play with the placement, but it's for you to really experiment, see what works, what doesn't. If you're having any issues with the auto select interfering, you can turn off the auto select in the top left corner of the screen. Then I can choose out the outline again and move that around to where I want. So again, play with it till you're satisfied, but I'm going to ultimately look to save this and go File, Save As, save it as a Photoshop file, then save it as a PNG or JPEG, depending on what you need to submit. And that's how you create a simple graphic in Adobe Photoshop.